Thanks everyone for joining us. So today's presentation, it's going to be pretty direct, pretty straightforward. We're going to be covering value-added production and opportunities in value-added production for agricultural producers. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. My name is Colin Cain. I'm the co-director for the center, as I said before, Center for Sustainable Ag and Rural Advancement at UTRGV. My colleague and co-director for the Texas Rural Cooperative Center, Annelies Lottmann, will be giving this presentation together. We're going to basically be covering sort of the why and the how, and some of the sort of USDA programs that are associated with value-added production. The opportunity is open right now to apply for the value-added producer grant through USDA Rural Development. So this training, this opportunity, the reason for us talking right now is for those people who are interested in understanding how can they do it, how can they bring that onto their farm, value-added production, and what opportunities are there for actually financing some of those activities. So moving on, just in general, what is SADA, the Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Rural Advancement, and what do we do? So our center, we work to improve agricultural sustainability and impact rural communities via targeted outreach and technical assistance projects, while engaging UTRGV faculty and students in research, education, experiential learning. We're basically the hub at the university, trying to really impact agricultural communities, rural communities through economic development sort of work that we do, technical assistance and training, and really develop relationships at the university. Basically, we can leverage then the assets of faculty and students to additionally impact those communities and develop research and educational opportunities. We're very fortunate to have partnered over the years with USDA Rural Development. There are some USDA Rural Development Texas office folks, I believe, on this presentation right now. I think Tommy's on. Tommy, thank you so much for being here and for partnering with us over the years. This specific presentation is we're delivering it through a few of our rural development projects, the Texas Rural Cooperative Center, which is funded through the RCDG program, and an affiliated program called SDGG, which we've also been fortunate to work with USDA on. So I'd like to, again, thank you for your partnership and for leadership in these spaces. So moving on, the objectives for today, what are we going to talk about? It's pretty kind of that 30,000 foot level. We're looking at the forest, and then we're going to look at the trees a little bit towards the end. We're going to talk about SADA's programming for value-added producers. We're going to talk about why value-added production, what is it, why it's important, and then we're going to go into the specific USDA value-added producer grant opportunities that exist right now, and some of the questions that need to be asked and answered pretty quickly if people want to get to that next phase, and then where to go for assistance. This is a really great program. VAPG is a great program because it's really focused on producers, but it can be intimidating. It is, of course, any federal program brings with it regulations. So understanding some of that stuff and understanding where to go is going to be important. And so we're going to help orient people around that. Just in general, what is value-added agriculture? What are the ways of developing value-added agricultural products? There are various definitions. When I say VAPG, I'm talking about the specific USDA grant for value-added producers. There are different definitions that USDA has, and then you can go online and search for definitions, but there are a couple ways of looking at it. Essentially, what value-added agriculture is, we find it useful to look at this image, which is a food supply chain or a value chain. These days in the pandemic, everyone hears the term supply chain sort of thrown around a lot in terms of why inflation is going up and whatnot, but essentially what it means is, how do you get an agricultural product from the field into someone's hands and mouths and belly? A lot of times there are multiple steps that a product takes along the way from the farm stand until it's actually in a consumer stand. Let's take, for example, strawberries. We have a colleague who is on this webinar right now who produces strawberries out in Willacy County. The strawberry itself is grown in the field. That strawberry then could be processed into jam in a commercial kitchen. That jam could then be sent up to HEB, sort of central processing, their distribution hub up in San Antonio, where it goes onto the shelf at a store in HEB, where then a consumer comes in, buys it, and brings it home and spreads it on toast and eats it. So those are the links in that chain. Basically, at each link in that chain, value is being added to the strawberry. And the idea between value-added agriculture is that the farm business itself can improve its profitability if it takes on more of the roles within that chain. So it processes the strawberries into jam itself in a commercial kitchen out in Willacy County or in Cameron County. It actually brings the jams then to a local retail market where it's sold by a local retailer, or it sells directly to consumer. Each of those roles, the more of those roles the farm takes under its own umbrella, the more profitable, in theory, the sale of that good should be back to the farmer. So that is really one of the reasons, but also the how. It's adding those links in the chain, in the value chain, under the sort of auspices of the farm itself. So that's one way of thinking about it. Another way would be in enhancing the value of the strawberry itself. So let's call that a raw commodity. If you sell a conventional strawberry, let's say you sell it for 50 cents, if you produce that strawberry organically and it's certified organic, you can charge a premium over that 50 cents or whatever the price is of 10%, 15%, 25%. And in theory, again, a higher percentage of that sale price would go back to you. So organic fruits and vegetables are a great example. There's also identity preserved grain, non-GMO corn, genetically modified corn is a really good example. Those are the two general ways that USDA and in general we think about, what type of value-added product are we talking about? Is it adding the links in the value chain back on the farm, or is it enhancing the value of the commodity itself? And why is that important? Why do we even sort of care about which path are you going to take, and why is value-added agriculture even important? Really, it's that if you are taking that strawberry from Willacy County and selling it just as a commodity, data that just came out of Cornell University Cooperative Extension says, sort of in general, for every dollar, let's say that strawberry costs $1 and it's sold at HEB, only about 27 cents would go back to the farmer that grew it and also be distributed to the suppliers of that farmer for seed and all the sort of inputs on farm. If that dollar strawberry is actually sold through a restaurant, even less of it would go back to the farm and to the farmer suppliers. It's only 7 cents. As you develop a value-added product, you're increasing that piece of the pie, that 27. If you're taking the strawberry as a raw strawberry, just the strawberry itself, let's say it's only 27 cents on the dollar. If you're making it into strawberry jelly or jam, maybe it's 30 cents on the dollar. If you're taking that jam then to a local market, you are actually distributing it locally to your consumers or to local retailers. Maybe that goes from 27 cents on the dollar to 32 cents on the dollar, 35 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar. Really depends on the product, of course, but essentially what you're doing is trying to increase your share of how much of each dollar sold goes to your revenue line and then trickles down to profitability and bottom line, which is the hope. And what people in business school would call that is vertical integration. When you take the supply chain, when you take the value chain, one business is actually playing multiple roles. That's what they call vertical integration. And it allows you to build in the profitability that other businesses that would play that role build in that profitability under the farm itself, rather than with a distributor or with a processor that is not a farm. Other reasons why it matters, why value-added production is important. Why does USDA support value-added production so much? When we talked about vertical integration, what it also does is really sort of in terms of the financial risk for small and medium-sized farms, it's a really, really good tool to mitigate financial risk in terms of agriculture is inherently seasonal in terms of when products are available and when sales can be made. You're growing strawberries, there's 3, 4, 5 month period when you can actually grow it and sell it. And it's only maybe shelf stable for about a month afterwards, max, depending on how it's handled, probably less than that. So your opportunity to actually derive revenue from that strawberry is not super long. You turn it into a jam or a jelly, it's shelf stable for 12 months, 2 years. You can generate revenue off of that strawberry that was sold or that was produced in the spring, come next winter, right? And so there is basically, you're not just relying on revenue during the growing season. You can generate revenue throughout the year. And what that means is that you don't have to manage the cash flow you don't have to you always have to manage cash flow, but the cash flow risk is a little bit less because you have opportunities for sales on that counter cyclical pattern. Diversifying products. It is having additional product, basically having different additional forms of generating revenue for any business is a way of decreasing financial risk. Because let's say I'm growing strawberries. If you're growing strawberries and all of a sudden there is a plague, there's some type of bug that is making the strawberries themselves kind of ugly, kind of not something that a consumer walks up to a little box or a bushel or whatever you want to call it of strawberries, and they say, "Oh, that's a beautiful strawberry. I really want to buy it." It's kind of knobby. Maybe instead of 1 point, it's got 2 points. Maybe instead of really bright red, it's a little bit lighter color, which people associate with not being as sweet, but it still tastes great. It just looks weird, right? The commodity itself might be impacted by that plague, but you can still make jams and jellies from that, right? There is still an opportunity to generate revenue from that product. There's no longer just one major failure point for your sales. You have another product that allows you to manage some of those external shocks a little bit better. And people listen to, I don't know, with Fox Business or CNBC, and people are talking about stock portfolios. Not that I have a stock portfolio, right? They talk about diversifying your stocks. It's basically the same thing. You're diversifying sources of revenue and revenue streams, which decreases the sort of financial risk. And especially for small scale farmers, it's a really important tool. And last but certainly not least, building customer value-added products are really powerful tools, especially for direct-to-consumer farmers, so farmers markets, CSAs. Basically, like they're opportunities to create conversation with your customers and potential customers. People love, food is something that just generates passion and love from people, and so having a sort of something that you can talk about with your consumers that tells the story of your farm is really powerful. Those relationships, those deep connected relationships with your customers, that is exceptionally valuable for small and medium-sized producers that are selling direct to consumers. There's also the aspect of this is something I can personally attest to. Daikon radish, for example. If I go to a farmer's market and I see daikon radish grows really well down here in the Rio Grande Valley. If I see a daikon radish that is the size of my forearm, I might look at it and say, I don't know how to even approach this thing. I don't really know how am I going to use it, how am I going to cook with it. If that daikon has been processed into matchsticks and it's in a jar or a can and it's pickled, I can have a better idea of, how can this be used? It's probably going to be used to add acidity to a rice dish or to a salad or something like that. It's telling the food story of the commodity itself in a way that inspires people, connects people back to the farm, and the farmer can sort of tell the story of how they envision the food that they're growing sort of ending up on the table of their consumers, which is exceptionally powerful. All right, so the Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Rural Advancement at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, we have various projects and programs and staff with expertise in different areas. But for value-added producers, how can we assist? We can assist growers, producers with product development strategy, business and marketing plans, distribution plans, sales plans, how to get your product into consumers' hands, and with VAPG applications. So anyone who is actually interested in applying for a value-added producer grant, you can get in contact with us. Annelies is going to follow up after this and really describe more of the program itself and more about how we work with our clients on it. One important note here is that we don't write applications for our clients. We help clients write their applications, develop the strategy. We work shoulder to shoulder with clients. We meet the clients where they are. But if people are looking for a consultant who will write the application for them, there's a market for that. There are consultants out there that will do that on your behalf. We don't write applications on producers' behalf. We work with producers to develop applications themselves. And we want to make sure, so moving on, that we pay homage to the work that has come before on value-added production. Texas Center for Local Food, Sue Beckwith, and National Center for Appropriate Technology, Mike Morris, Robert Maggiani, and all the staff there. They developed a really great resource. You can see this here, the Beyond Fresh Processing Guide for Texas Farmers. There's that saying, you can only see so far from standing on the shoulder of giants, and they've done a really good job of developing a tool here that is very action oriented and helps frame different decision points and choices that need to be made along the line of actually coming up with and selling and marketing value-added products. There's actually the photo on the cover is one of our local producers down here, Jonathan, I believe. It's a really, really cool guide, and they're both sort of experts in this field. So shout out to Sue and Mike, and thank you for your partnership over the years. There is a link here that I believe is going into the chat where people can actually access this guide. Like I said, it's a really, really great tool, and I very much encourage anyone who is considering both applying for the VAPG program and just getting into value-added production overall to access it. So I'm going to hand the rest of the presentation over to my colleague Annelies Lottmann, again co-director for Texas Rural Cooperative Center. Annelies, take it away.
Thanks, Colin. It is great to be here with all of you. I'm so glad that you're joining us for just this quick lunchtime session to talk about the VAPG. The reason we're talking about value-added products and the value-added producer grant is that the grant is open for applications right now. Now is the window. Most years, there is a window that opens up for about a month and a half, a month in which you can apply. So that window is open now. Let's talk a little bit about the program. So it's a program of the USDA, and it's focused on farmers and provides funding directly to farmers. That makes it really special. There aren't many programs, as you probably know, that provide money into the hands of farmers directly. It provides funding for either planning or working capital. And so one of your first decisions that you'll make is which direction you want to go with your application. Planning means things like feasibility studies, thinking about a future project. Working capital means you know what the value-added project is, and you're looking for funds to help you accomplish that project. A couple things to know about this grant program. One is that there's a match requirement for the farmer. So for every dollar that you would like to spend of the government's money, they ask you to also show that you're putting in a dollar of your own value. It doesn't have to be cash. Some of it does, but cash, farmer time, the value of the raw commodity. So the value of a raw strawberry might be part of the match that you're providing in a strawberry jam value-added project. This year, there is some opportunity to have a much smaller match, a 10-to-1 match, and that is a piece of pandemic recovery funding, but it's just going to be a small piece of the awards that are made this year. So we ask people, or we advise people, to go in thinking about that 1-to-1 match and creating a project that can survive with you paying essentially half of the cost of the project in, again, cash, time, raw commodity, in-kind contributions. This grant is also reimbursement based. So if you're awarded $30,000, you don't get a $30,000 check in the mail. Instead, as you spend down your budget lines, you request reimbursement from the USDA for those approved expenditures. And the good news on that is that the USDA is extremely fast about getting that money dispersed to you once the reimbursement requests are approved. It's the folks we worked with. I've been the recipient or part of a cooperative recipient of a VAPG in the past. That money came fast. It was great. This year, applications are due May 2nd if it's on paper, or May 25th if it's electronic. So you can guess, we tend to advise folks to submit on paper so that they get that additional time. Eligibility. In order to be eligible to receive funds under this program, the basic rule of thumb is you have to be an agricultural producer. So a restaurant owner who doesn't grow anything can't apply for this grant. a farmer's market owner or a farmer's market manager can't apply for this. This is a grant that's for agricultural producers. It could be a group of producers. It could be a business that's majority controlled by producers. It could be a cooperative of producers. But the key is this is funding for producers to add value to what they are growing. There are a few different ways to think about how you can add value. And Colin talked about some of these in a more general sense in the earlier part of this presentation. And these are the specific methodologies, the specific ways of adding value that are part of the VAPG. So one is change in physical state. And that's, you're making strawberry jam. You have raw strawberries and you make strawberry jam. The next one on the list is locally produced agricultural food products. So this tends to surprise the folks that I'm working with. The USDA with this grant program is really recognizing the value of selling to a local market. So for example, at least in Central Texas, and I'm gonna guess probably down in the Rio Grande Valley too, poteet strawberries are a big deal. And poteet is the name of a town. So when you're marketing your strawberries as poteet strawberries, you're saying, we grew these here. And so we're going to charge a little more for them potentially, or capture more customers because they're poteet strawberries. So a marketing campaign around your locally produced items could be a part of a value-added project. Produced in a manner that enhances value, that's your organic carrots. The VAPG is not going to pay for organic certification or anything to do with the production of the carrots. We're looking at post-harvest activities. So for organic carrots, that's probably marketing primarily. You're going to explain to people the value of your carrots because they were grown organically, and you're going to get them into the marketplace at a higher dollar value. Physical segregation, that's usually a post-harvest activity, though you could make an argument for segregating fields of different produce from one another, and that if you can market that to your customers. This is, for example, storing GMO products in a different place than where you store non-GMO products so that you're able to market them as non-GMO. On-farm renewable energy, this is a very special USDA category. We don't often think of this as value added, but the idea is that you're adding value to the farm by essentially capturing a waste stream or utilizing unused space. So methane capture from livestock or solar panels in your pasture would be examples of that sort of project. What will the VAPG pay for? This is the big question. So this is the language directly from the USDA website, and Aisha's going to put a couple of different links for USDA so that you can access the information that they have about this grant and how it works. It's always good to go to the source for information like this. So again, you've got planning or working capital opportunities, and it's all related to marketing and producing value-added agricultural products. So planning activities, the examples they give are feasibility studies, business plan development, maybe a processing or marketing plan for the value-added product. And then working capital, and I would say we see primarily working capital applications. Those would be processing costs. So you know you're going to turn your strawberries into jelly, so you need jars, and you need a strainer, and you need sugar, and you need to pay somebody to put them in the jars. Maybe some equipment like a pressure canner would be a good example of equipment that would be eligible under the VAPG. Then marketing and advertising expenses, that includes a website or Facebook ads, anything that you're using to get the word out about your project, about your product. And then some inventory and salary expenses. So if you've got storage costs, if you need to pay people in order to do the work that makes these products a reality or that adds the value, all of those types of things can be included in a value-added producer grant application. So here are some local examples to the Rio Grande Valley. We're going to start with the green bags at the top. That's a farm to health program. It's a partnership between a local hospital and a cooperative of farms. And so the farms are growing fresh produce. They're aggregating that produce together as a cooperative and creating a multi-farm CSA basket. So it's a basket of produce gathered from all these different farms. And then the hospital purchases the basket and provides it to their workers as sort of a benefit of employment. You can access this fresh produce as part of working at the hospital. The value is added essentially because you're marketing your local product to a local audience and you're doing that aggregation piece. That's the value add. You're not changing the physical state. It's still a raw, fresh vegetable, but the way that it's being marketed adds value. Next, we're going clockwise. We've got some Mesquite Bean products. These are from Capadonna Ranch, and it's teas and coffees as well as jellies. And Mesquite, this is a great example of a change in physical state. You've got these beans that don't have very much value, if any, when they're on the tree or on the ground, but by processing them into jams, jellies, teas, coffees, you're able to capture a significant amount of value. Then going down, there's fresh, locally produced milk from Canali Dairy, and that's, again, local sale of a locally produced agricultural product. And then over to the left, there's quail raised by Golden Farms that's processed and then packaged for sale. So marketing, packaging, labeling, those pieces can all be part of a working capital grant for under VAPG. So we want to help you plan for success. There is still time to start a VAPG application. It's a complicated application process that will ask you to think about your farm and your farm business in a different way than you have ever thought about it before. And because of that, I would say a month, the amount of time basically that's left, is usually the minimum that people need to really get a great application out the door. But again, it can still be done, and we're here to help. So if you want to apply for a VAPG, even if you're just thinking maybe, today there are some things you should do. One, apply for your SAM number. Your SAM number is required by the federal government to apply for funding. So it's just a basic requirement. If you don't have the number on your application, you can't apply. And it can take a few days to get sorted. So just do that now, get it out of the way. And I think that's another link that's going to go in the chat, the link to where to find information about SAM. Then you're going to download and review the USDA application toolkit. The USDA has created a spectacular resource for this grant program because they know that it's a heavy lift to apply for this value-added producer grant. They ask for a lot of information and a lot of detail, but they've created this template essentially that you can use to, in some cases, just fill in the blanks with a word or two. And even when they're asking for a lot of detail, they're very specific about what they're asking for. And they provide you with information about how many points you'll get in each section, as long as you answer all the specific details that they're asking for. A lot of our role in helping people apply for the VAPG is just making sure that you're not missing any things on this application, just to make sure that you're answering the question so completely and thoroughly that you'll get full credit on each scoring section. Reaching out to SADA staff, reach out to us. If you think you're going to want to apply and you think you'll want our help, let us know today so that we can get you on the calendar and we can set up a consultation and just talk through the project. Also reach out to the folks at USDA RD up in Temple. They're going to be an incredibly valuable resource to help you through this project and to help you answer questions. If you're wondering whether your project is really eligible or whether you're really an independent producer, they're a huge help with those kinds of questions. Then this week, if you're still moving forward after the things that you need to get done today, this week you need to decide whether you're going to do a planning or a working capital application. Again, planning, that's feasibility study, business planning, thinking about a future project. Working capital is, you know, the value-added product that you're going to make, and you need financial help to make it a reality. You're also going to decide whether to do a simplified application. This is for working capital specifically. And simplified application is available for projects that are asking for less than $50,000. Now, it's possible to ask for up to $250,000, but if it's above $50,000, you need to provide a third-party feasibility study, a business plan, and it's just a more complicated, higher lift of an application that's going to take more time and more expertise. If you have feasibility studies already created for your value-added product, or you have access to a consultant or company who can do that kind of work with a pretty quick turnaround, it can still be a great option to do the more complex, higher dollar application. For many of the small producers we work with, accessing less than, but right around $50,000 is a significant benefit, and you can do the simplified application. So what kind of assistance do we at SADA provide for the VAPG? Again, a lot of what we're doing is helping you navigate that application. We're helping to make sure that you're able to present your value-added project with clarity in a way that the USDA reviewers are going to really understand. They're going to see that you know your industry and that you have put the time and work in to create a project that's really going to add value for your farm operation, that's going to help your farm become more stable. And so we can help just think through the application, kind of building on what we've talked about today, thinking through the eligibility of you as a producer or your producer-owned business and your project, making sure that the things that you want to include in your budget are allowable expenses, planning the timeline of the application process over the next month. There's a specific section of the application that requires a detailed budget and work plan. And so we can help with the design of that and creating a strategy around how those pieces can fit together. And then we're happy to review drafts as you work through the application and its different parts, help with editing, and just really make sure that it's a great package, and help you be ready to submit on time. So that brings me to the end of the overview, and I see that we've got a question already in the Q&A. I'll look at it in just a second. Here is our contact information, and like I said, please do reach out, even if you're just considering an application. Even if you're not considering an application this year, if you are interested by what Colin had to say regarding value-added production in general, and are wanting to develop a value-added product, we'd love to speak with you about that as well. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions.
Info and consultancies that help with applications and consultancies on feasibility studies. So we work for a public institution. We're funded by a federal grant. We can't make specific referrals to private companies for this stuff. We can give sort of illustrative lists of groups and organizations that we know that kind of engage in this type of work. I think that would be a direct outreach. So please reach out to us, and we can at least let you know who we know kind of operates in this space. But like I said, we can't say, hey, contact, work with this group, work with that person, because, that's not how we roll. But it's a great question. It's a really important question. And so we want to make sure it gets answered. From Ulissa Cantu, can we get some examples for cattle ranchers? It's a great question. I think that one of the examples I was thinking about earlier, and Annelies, I'm sure you can think of another one, is the identity preservation thing for cattle recently. It's a big issue. I mean, everyone's heard of the Wagyu beef from Japan, and then different ranchers, especially in Texas, but throughout the country, crossbreeding like the Wagyu cows with maybe Angus or whatever kind of like heat tolerant cattle that we have down here. And there's a couple local ranches that I believe is it Akawashi or is it Akaushi? I forget where the consonant is and the vowel is, but it is one of those types of cattle that is differentiated from sort of like standard beef. It is identity preserved through that kind of like breeding. And that I believe that would qualify as a value-added product because of its sort of identity. And then again, if you want to sell that locally, you want to sell that directly to consumers. If you're producing it in the Rio Grande Valley, in farmers markets here, you want to sell directly to restaurants. That right there is an eligible product. But again, it's everything that happens once that beautiful animal is harvested. I believe is the term that we're using, is processed. That's basically the project. But Annelies, I know that there are going to be other examples too.
I think those are great examples. I've always heard it Akaushi, but I don't know if that's right either.
That makes sense.
The idea of, anything that you're creating to allow you to be able to sell the product yourself, as opposed to selling the animals like on the hoof at auction, is going to increase their value to you. So if you choose to get your animals processed and then sell them direct to consumers yourself instead of selling them into the commodity market, then you've got a value-added project, and you can seek funds for things like labeling and advertising that product, and the cost of having a farm stand to sell that product, the cost of transporting it to a restaurant that's buying direct from you. Again, you wouldn't pay for the actual processing of the animal because that's harvest, but post-harvest, any of those pieces could be a part of a value-added project.
Right. And also the easiest thing to think of the red meats is the raw meat to jerky, right? That is a value-added product that comes from the meat itself. Yeah. We have another question, Annelies, from Cruz Salinas. Hey, Cruz. And Tommy McFall from USDA might actually be able to answer this better. But Cruz is asking, if they don't want to apply this round, how often and when would the next opportunity be to apply? Is it once a year, twice a year, or just when USDA puts it out?
Yeah, so we typically see it once a year, and it's often in the spring. But yeah, Tommy, I don't know if you have any. I
mean, there definitely have been. I think that there have been cycles where we've seen different releases twice within a calendar year. But I think they fell in different fiscal years for the federal government, and a lot of it's tied to, of course, like farm bill appropriations. And so it's like the easy answer is it depends. It's usually once a year. Sometimes it's longer, and a lot of it just depends on federal appropriations and where our government structures are in any particular moment. But I think recently it's been pretty consistent. I think with this recent farm bill, I think the last 2, 3, 4 cycles have been fairly regular, and I think that regularity has been once every calendar year.
Colin, Tommy says that was the perfect answer. So
it depends, right? It depends. Like on one hand, it's this way, and on the other, yeah. Tommy, thank you so much. It means a lot.
And I would say that it's never too early to start thinking about an application, by which I mean, if you're not ready this year, let's talk in May after this application is submitted. The toolkit doesn't change terribly much from year to year. There may be some changes. We can't predict the future, But getting started early means that when the applications are actually released, you'll be ready to roll, at least with the outline of a project. And we're happy to help anytime with that.
That's a really important piece of this. Is it really depends on where producers are, right? Where sort of business owners are in the planning stages. This can take, if you're really doing a close consideration and you have a big project, this can take years to really think through before sort of before you break ground on actually launching the product. And if some people are planners, other people, they want to get it done in 2 weeks, and it just really depends on where people find themselves and what approach they want to take to this kind of work. All right. Tommy also mentions getting started early increases things that are missing. If things change, you can update the application quickly. That's a great point. I believe and Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of like how the application process works, is when you submit either through grants.gov or with the hard copy, the written copy, it goes to the state office, right? Rural Development, USDA Rural Development has state offices. They receive the applications, they review the applications and make sure that eligibility criteria across all of these different areas are met, and that it is an application that actually is going to be reviewed and scored for approval, which happens, I think, at the national level. So if you get that application early, in theory, and I think it really depends on how many applications there are and how soon you get it to them, in theory, USDA state office would have an opportunity to say, hey, you're missing this one form, or you are missing a signature on this document, which is really important, which is required for them to say, yes, you are eligible. We're missing one signature. And if you submit it an hour before the due date, that is not going to happen. From personal experience, I know that that's not going to happen. So you want to make sure that, again, planning, you don't plan to fail, you fail to plan, that sort of stuff. Really try to get started on it early, but also, the due dates are what they are. It's 25th and the 2nd, right? So it's April 25th and May 2nd. Paradoxically, grants.gov on the 25th and the hard copy on May 2nd. Get started on it now. And again, reach out to us if you're really considering it, just for that technical assistance that we can sort of provide throughout the process. But Annelies, what else? What am I missing? What are we missing?
I think we're pretty much there. So Tommy makes a great point that USDA wants to be able to get as many of our Texas farmers assistance and getting solid, complete applications. Doing that, that's what the folks at USDA want as well. So it can, it's a partnership between all of us.
We want to make everyone's job easier so people can say yes. And that's really, again, there's a value chain here, and we are all like links in that value chain. Sorry.
With that beautiful image,
Lord,
my fellow value chain links. Thank you so much for being with us for your Friday lunchtime. It's an honor to see so many of you. We had almost 20 people here for most of the presentation, so that's super cool. I'm excited to hear about your value-added projects. If you've got one going and you want to apply this year, if you'd like advice and assistance developing your project, if you want to think about next year's application cycle, please reach out, and keep an eye on our SATA Facebook page and the other ways that you heard about this. We've got a lot of great presentations about farming, cooperative development, and solutions for agricultural businesses that are coming up this year. We're going to start having a lot of regular webinars for you.